Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we have a big time video because we're talking about a classic movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. So I brought along a special guest, Rusty here, and me and him are gonna break down 1987's Predator, directed by John McTiernan. So I guess to start off, I should probably say how I got introduced to this movie. Because this is one of those movies that has a huge influence on me as a kid growing up. So like a lot of kids back in the day, my parents didn't want me to watch violent movies and stuff like that, but I essentially had this really cool uncle who we would visit on weekends, and he was one of those guys that was kind of a big movie guy, so he had HBO and he would record VHS tapes. And essentially what would happen is we would go to his house, and I would go into wherever he had his tape drawer in a little back room there, and no one would really watch me. I would just kind of go to his tapes, and so I found out that he had a copy of Predator, Terminator, Aliens, all these great movies, and that was my intro to Predator. And from that point forward, it's become like a quintessential movie of mine. So yeah, man. So Rusty, just to bring you in here, do you remember the first time you saw Predator, and how'd you feel about it when you first saw it?
Yeah, I've been trying to think about that. I can tell you when I was first introduced, to the plot of it. In the late '90s, I got an Arnold Schwarzenegger book from the library. I don't remember. I don't know the title of it, but it covered all of his bodybuilding stuff and gave a synopsis of his big films like Hercules in New York, Conan, Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to chapter on Predator, where I hadn't seen the film yet, but they break down the whole plot of the film, and they just discuss the character deaths. And one thing I remember in particular was it described the scene where Dylan gets his arm blown off, but it's still firing the machine gun. And then in the ending,
it's a big
the Predator takes off his his mask and his armor pieces, and he fights Arnold hand to hand in a bloody battle. So this was probably '98 or '99 when I read the book, and I was already all over the Terminator films and stuff like Eraser, and unfortunately probably Batman and Robin at the time. And then Predator 1, I think I sat down and watched it on Stars or Encore one night with my dad.
Mm.
And it's just that was a great experience. Even knowing kind of the basic plot, I didn't remember all the details going in. I just knew that pretty much everybody else got wiped out.
Yeah, I think yeah, we had very similar experiences, man. But I didn't watch it with someone, and it's it was kind of traumatizing at points, because let me just say, Predator is probably one of the most, good God, there are some scenes in Predator that are the violence is outrageous and the gore is outrageous. I mean, damn. So I guess we should probably just start from the beginning. Let me just say something, man. The intro to Predator is probably one of the most hyped up intros to any movie. The music, the way the guys show up, the chopper, the way Arnold gets out of the chopper, the team.
He's puffing a cigar.
He's puffing a cigar sitting back there. Comes out last, as the Merc point out. Very important. It's crazy because the characterization is already so good. The minute these guys get off the chopper, each one of them is their own guy. They all look different. They all have their own style. And it's Jesus, man. It's a typical setup that you would get in most 80s action movies, but it's a little bit different because it's I don't know, there's something about Predator, the way that it handles the characters in this. It's a cut above most of the standardized 80s movies. So I guess that comes down to John McTiernan's direction, but man, there are so many iconic moments in this film, and you touched on a couple of them earlier. And I think we could probably go into them, but I don't want to go too long on this video. We'll probably go for about an hour. But damn. Listen, man. My first experience watching this movie, the thing about Predator is that it literally touches on every single thing that like a kid like me growing up like loved, like action movies, Arnold, muscles, guns, sci-fi, aliens, suspense, horror. The amount of stuff in this movie that it blends together so seamlessly is incredible.
Yeah, you could take the whole cast, and it's like they all just arrived on set from another movie. So you brought in Arnold from the Arnold movies. You brought in Apollo Creed.
Good point.
You brought in Jesse Ventura from the WWE, and then you brought in Bill Duke from Commando.
Bill Duke.
Now Billy, Hawkins, and Chopper. I don't know if they had any of their own franchises going at the same time, but I guess it ended up being Predator. And all the supporting guys, that could have led their own movie. They all have their own sort of hobbies or character tics. Mac, has that big razor that he's always shaving himself with, even though he doesn't have any stubble. Blaine chews tobacco, listens to music, and makes inappropriate comments. One of the guys, either Chopper or Hawkins, they keep making a joke about how big his girlfriend's pussy is, and he keeps trying to get Billy to laugh. Billy's the tracker. He apparently has a really keen sense of smell, and he figures out pretty quickly what's going on. And then Dylan is kind of you might trust him implicitly on the basis of him being in the Rocky films, but then you find out he's not very trustworthy, and he's kind of a double dealing CIA guy.
God, it's so good, man. Because the thing is, like, before the movie even begins, they set up so many different things, and you said it so perfectly. Like, each one of his team members in this could be an action hero in their own movie. So you're already setting up the stakes that whatever these guys are going to be up against, my God, man, like, you're already in the mindset of these guys are gonna win. These guys are gonna mop the floor, whatever the mission they're going on. Even like the conversation that Dutch has with Dylan, and just the efficiency of storytelling. I always like it when movies do this. Just the way they talk, you can immediately pick up that Dylan and Dutch had a big history, and Dylan was always sort of trying to catch up with Dutch, but Dutch was always better. What is this fucking tie business?
He's the best.
Exactly. What about that job you pulled up in Berlin, Dutch? Very nice.
Yeah, so, and then there's some Afghanistan backstory too.
Yes, and you get all of this from just like a quick conversation. I really appreciated how they took their time in this to basically reveal a Predator in stages. It was kind of like almost like an onion. Like, they showed different parts. Like, first you see the vision, then you see the hand, then you see like, a little bit here, a little bit there. And the way that they reveal it all the way towards the end is not until the end of the movie do you not see this thing in its entirety.
Yeah, you really don't see him fully uncloaked, I think, until he jumps in the water and he's looking for Arnold.
Yeah, that's by almost towards the end of the film by that point, which
yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
I took some notes on this yesterday. So one, the opening scene, the first shot you see actually is of outer space, and you do see the Predator ship coming towards Earth.
Right.
So right away they're not hiding the fact that this is a sci-fi movie, but you don't know what's on the ship. 12 minutes in, they find the crashed chopper with the executed pilot, and Billy finds the signs of the U.S. soldiers that weren't supposed to be there. 18 minutes in is a POV shot from the Predator. 27 minutes, you get two Arnold one-liners. Stick around, and then knock knock. As he shoots a couple of guys.
Knock knock.
30 minutes, Dutch confronts Dylan about why they're really there, and says there's a whole exchange about how my men are not expendable, even though we're expendable assets. 45, and it isn't until 45 minutes in when Hawkins dies. That's when the Predator makes his first move against the team.
Yes, man. I mean, the pacing of this movie is incredibly good, man. I feel like everything in this movie is so calculated and well done. it's just like good directing, man. Like through the whole thing is just like this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens. And what I do like about this movie though is that it shows you just how good of a team that he had, because the second that these guys touched down, they immediately knew something was fishy. Like when they first like happened upon that the bodies,
Helicopter.
yeah, the helicopter, and then they found the bodies. Billy finds the bodies. Like the look on Dutch's face was like, what the hell is going on here? And you could tell it, like the guys that he had with him was giving him little hints like, oh, this doesn't seem right, that doesn't seem right. So by the time you get to the point where like they're at the village, Dutch already knows that something is up here. And I really appreciate that detail because it's something you don't really pick up on until you watch the movie multiple times. So it shows you just, again, they're establishing how good these guys really are.
Yeah, and they also, Dutch also calls, somebody mentions that it looks like the helicopter was hit by a heat seeker, and Dutch is like, that's pretty high-tech stuff for a bunch of mountain boys.
Yep, exactly.
And also, I chuckled at this. They find the dog tags of one of the Green Berets from Fort Bragg.
Hopper.
His name was Jim Hopper. If you that's also the name of David Harbour's character in Stranger Things.
Yes, man. You know, these guys, those guys that made Stranger Things, I gotta say, those guys know. They're on that wavelength. Very smart, man.
Yeah, 53. What the pacing reminded me of was another film I watched at the behest of the Merc a few years ago, was Rambo 2. Rambo 2, the action doesn't really start till about 45 minutes in, because it starts out as a sneaking mission.
Mm-hmm.
Rambo goes into that camp and he's crawling under buildings and taking guys out, and then I think it ends with him getting captured, and you don't really have a big massive shootout until the second hour of the film.
Man, 80s films were built different, man. They respected the audience to have the patience, man. They respected that.
Yeah, so they find I mean, in this film, after Hawkins is taken into the woods, they empty their ammunition into the forest, and they do draw some blood on the Predator, but from that point on, their guns are basically useless because they've used a lot of ammunition and they can't see it, so they have to start. They build traps. They actually put down a net that ends up working, but they have tripwires, claymores, snares. At 66 minutes, the Predator finally gets caught in the net, and then he panics and he just starts blind firing with his plasma cannon and blasts his way out. And that's where I think Chopper gets hit by the swinging log that was tied to a rope and gets busted up pretty bad.
Yeah, man. Like,
70 minutes in is the death of Mac, and then right after is the death of Dylan. And you still have about 40 minutes left of Arnold running and then setting up the final confrontation.
Look, man. Look, that final act of this movie, that in and of itself could be its own movie. Like, it felt like a movie within a movie. Like, there was literally 3 acts to that whole sequence. Like, from the moment when Dutch confronts the Predator for the first time and he can see me, from that point forward, that entire sequence, when he's gearing up, the music, everything, it felt like its own mini movie. Like, you could slice that up and people will be able to follow that as a movie.
I mean, the third act is kind of, what Predator is inspired by is I think is it Rudyard Kipling who wrote The Most Dangerous Game?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
of
that was a film. But that was a short story about a hunter, hunting a human,
mm-hmm.
and I think the human sets the other guy ends up setting a trap. He ends up taking out the hunter with a trap, and that's basically what the third act of Predator is. Although that one didn't end with a bloody fist fight. And what this, and really, I was watching it. I didn't realize how much time. I knew it was a longer fight than what we had seen in the most recent film.
Yeah.
And they try to that one just speed runs to its conclusion.
Oh yes, yeah.
Here,
I have issues with that aspect.
You see Dutch building weapons, setting, he's got 2 grenade rounds left, and he makes arrow grenades. He fashions his own bow and arrow, covers himself in mud, starts a couple of fires, and he just sets up little spots that he wants to shoot at, and then he calls the predator out. And then the predator still has to show up and sneak in behind him, and it becomes a cat and mouse game. And this goes on for 20 to 30 minutes.
I want to tell you a secret, man. Secret to... Here's the thing, man. Here's why Prey wasn't the movie for me. Every Predator movie has to have an explosive third act. The thing about Prey was that, to me, it felt like they rushed through that real quick. Because think about it.
Film is 90 minutes before credits.
It was a short movie, man, and I feel like I wish they had made this movie slightly longer, man. I don't know if it's a budget issue or what, but even still, I feel like it might be like a director thing, because the way that this movie plays out in the third act, so much crazy shit happens. Like the moment when like Dutch is hugging the tree, and he set up a trap for the predator to come down towards the fire, and you can see the music, you can see the movement behind him, and then the music, boom, 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 and you start to see the predator literally crawling down the tree right behind them. Dutch quickly, like, you can see the look in his face. He's like, oh shit, and the way he swings across to the other side, man, like, and then the part when he falls in the water and he loses his ability. Oh my god, but there's so many good moments in this. That final act is so good. I didn't get any of that from Prey. I feel like it was like wham bam, thank you ma'am, I beat him.
I mean, it's really, to me, the climax of that film is really him taking out all the nasty French trappers, and then the fight,
right.
And then he ends up killing her brother, and then her whole thing just she runs to that quicksand spot from earlier in the film, and this all ends in about 10 minutes.
Man,
it's like they said the movie needs to be 90 minutes, and they just didn't give themselves enough room for that final confrontation. And we're gonna make him. He's gonna die by his own hand.
That was a mistake.
Which is pretty silly.
Man, me and Half-Out talked about it, man. Just comparing the endings to these two movies, man. It's like night and day. Like, come on, man. Do you realize how smart predators are? Do you remember the moment when Dutch is trying to goad the predator to come towards him so he can, like, trap him in that... I don't know what he had, but it was some kind of a branch with, like, blades on it. And the predator was about to go for him. Come on, kill me, I'm here, come on! And then, like, the predator was, like, about to go for him, and it's like, oh, hang on a second. What is this? And it goes around the other side. These things are not stupid, man. So, you can't tell me that this predator didn't realize that his own equipment was being used against him?
Like, why? Yeah, at that point, why are you? If you know your weapons are guided to a laser, why would you even be blind firing at that point?
Why would you even bother shooting it? You can't see anything. You see the way these things target? Like, they got that crazy targeting device thing, which is sick in this movie. But yeah, man, it's the psychology of it, man. Like, that whole ending sequence, man, it's just incredible, man. See, here's the thing, man. When you fight a predator and you win, you don't go home cheering and happy. You are psychologically fucked up for the rest of your life if you fight a predator and survive. Did you see the look on Dutch's eyes? The look in his eyes at the end of Predator?
He looks like he just walked out of the World Trade Center. And he never comes back for a single sequel. He's mentioned by name in Predators, but they never figured out to bring back the Dutch character. Although I think the Lawrence Fishburne role in 3, I think there was an idea of making that Dutch.
You know,
Thank God they didn't.
you know, I found him to be the most interesting thing about Predators because I liked his backstory. I thought he was interesting, but he was barely in the movie. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big failing of they wasted Lawrence Fishburne there.
Yeah, man. I mean, no one in Predator 1 has been wasted. Every single character has their purpose. And I think it's kind of a wasted opportunity how, you know, I think they had the opportunity to bring in a connection between Billy and the Native American aspect of Predator, of Prey, because Billy was the only guy on that team that, since the beginning of the film, he kind of understood what they were dealing with. Like, there was some sort of supernatural thing going on between him and the way he sensed it. And you could tell because, like, the way that Arnold was talking too. What's got Billy so spooked? It's been like this really all morning. I mean, that was a really missed opportunity, I thought, because, like, that whole aspect, even in, like, in Prey, like, the guy that played her brother was so good. Why would you not bring that guy into the final battle? Do you know how good that would be?
Yeah, it would have made, you know, even if you're going to kill him off, it would have given that scene some more punch. He dies at the last second. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked. The problem with Prey is just you just get nothing else from the other characters. The other guys and then the hunting party, you can't tell them from Adam.
No,
so when they
man.
start getting killed off, you don't know who they are. You're not sad. It's not like Mac. It's not like Mac or Blaine.
Dude,
in the
man.
end, they don't mourn each other. You know, remember, Mac has a personal funeral for Blaine, and has the last drink and gives him that that canteen, the whiskey flask. And you can see how angry he is when his body gets taken from the campsite.
There's so much psychology in the way that these characters interact. Like, the history between them, you could tell that all these guys have been on hundreds of missions together. So when they start getting taken out quickly, like, one by one like that, it is, like, tough on that team. Especially, like you said, with Mac. Like, this guy was up middle of the night talking to the moon. Talking to the moon about the missions they were on, and, you know, 32 men chopped into meat. Just you and me. All that stuff, man. But
Mac is my favorite character in One.
Is Mac your favorite character? He was good, man. Bill Duke, man. You scared, motherfucker? Green Beret is gonna kick your ass.
I'm gonna have me some fun. I'm gonna have me some fun. He's walking up the hill out of breath, lugging his weapons. And he takes off his vest and his extra ammo so he can move faster.
Listen, man, every single kill in Predator 1, like, it was crazy. These guys got taken out in the most gory, horrific ways I think I've ever seen anyone get dispatched in a movie. And it was expertly done because,
well, some of it you don't see. You don't see what happens to Billy.
Exactly.
Hawkins, no, Chopper, he just gets shot in the head when they're running it right before they get to the chopper line.
Right.
But he's already banged up from getting hit by a tree.
That's the beauty of it, man. Do you remember Billy's death? I think was probably the scariest one because you don't see it.
Yeah. Now that yell he does, that is pretty over the top.
It is, but
it's like, yeah.
The thing is,
I won't hurt your eardrums on the headphones.
I think it was.
It's kind of funny.
I think it was necessary because it's like, good Lord, what happened to Billy for him to scream like that?
And he saw it coming too.
Billy was the only guy I think on that whole team that, like, I feel like he would have had a chance if not for the fact that, you know, it wasn't his movie. Did you see how, like, that whole sequence leading up to his death, he pulls out that giant knife and he just cuts his chest. I'm like, this guy is ready to go. This guy's ready to dance. And he just gets taken out off screen. That takes balls, man.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that Predator's double blade. It almost works as a shield too. So he would have blocked that income. He probably kept his cloak on, and blocked the knife shot with that blade, and then stabbed him.
Man, and the thing is, he kept Billy's...
And he ripped out his spine.
Yes.
We saw the spine rip. That's the first time you see that.
So you know that the reason he kept that was it was a crazy fight, Rusty. It was a crazy fight. So
yeah,
even
that was his prize trophy at the time. And you can even see him. You can see him checking out Dutch's skull. Like, this guy's got a big head. This is gonna be big. this is gonna look great on my wall.
Listen, man. I forgot about that part. Like, the characterization of this movie runs so deep. Even the creature in the movie has personality. Like, I would say that even the creature itself has some of the most personality I've ever seen. Kevin Peter Hall. I gotta give this guy a shout out because performance.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man. Heard he was a really nice guy too.
He died at a really young age.
Yeah. Do you know how he died?
I've read I'll tell you. I read about it the other day.
Well, I know. I was asking if you
wasn't it surgery?
Yeah, they messed up a blood transfusion, I believe. And he got AIDS. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was something like that. The guy was like 7'2".
It made Arnie look small. Arnie's like 6'2". Listen, man. What I really enjoyed about his performance in that suit was that you can tell that he wasn't moving like a person moves. That's the problem I had with Prey. There were too many scenes in Prey when the Predator is just walking around and it looks like a guy in a suit. And it just pulled me right out of the movie.
And they show him too much.
They showed
this movie, less was more.
That's the thing about these movies, man. Less is more. Okay, here's an example. Perfect example of why Predator 1 is so much better. Every Predator movie, there's a scene where you get to see the Predator's face. There's always a big build-up to that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how the Predator in Prey face got shown?
Was it pretty? I don't remember.
You don't even remember it. That's the thing. Listen, do you remember okay, so in Predator 1, the Predator is like literally standing in front of Dutch. Dutch is like, oh, I'm fucked. This thing is about to kill me. It starts to take off its armor, and Dutch is like, what the fuck? What is going on? He pulls off that cannon, he takes off, and he raises his hands in a weird way. He puts it over his face. He starts unplugging these little hoses and stuff. And he pulls off the mask, and you see the Predator's vision change as it lifts it up slowly. Then you hear a giant music cue. And then you see its face. And then there's the famous line, "You're one ugly motherfucker." That's what you call a scene. That's what you call it. You know what happens in Prey? The Predator's fighting. This guy rides in on his horse and he knocks the helmet off, and then you see the Predator's face, and it looks stupid. It wasn't even a good design.
Well, actually, have you seen the photos of what they did before the original suit and mask that he's wearing looks better than what's in the final film because they added some CGI to his face.
Oh no. Oh no. Listen, I'll say this. No one, since Stan Winston Studios hasn't done a Predator movie, none of the Predators have ever looked as good. Especially the mandibles. They always mess up the mandibles for some reason. They always make them too wide, or it looks goofy. It just never looks right. That's probably why they did that, because they didn't have the skill set of a team that could animate the face properly. So they said, you know what, screw it, we're just gonna CGI over it. Rusty. Films have changed. uh, but yeah, man. There's so many iconic moments in Predator 1. Like,
The amount of you have enough one-liners. You have enough one-liners to carry another movie.
that's the thing, man.
I ain't got time to bleed.
The way these guys talk to each other. It's like typical tough guy talk. But they took it to a new level, man. Like, I was talking to the Merc about this. How sick do you have to be to stab a guy, hit him to a beam, smile, and then as you leave, you say stick around, and the guy's dying.
Yeah, to me that's like a carryover from Commando. It's like, let off some steam, Bennett.
The guy is dying, and he just walks away telling a joke. I was like, oh, like, yes, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's such a cool genre mashup where it starts out basically like a Rambo movie, but you have like 5 or 6 guys that are Rambo, and then it turns into Alien.
Yeah, and people have talked about this, but I think, I personally like it that they had the intro with the ship, but a lot of people are saying that, like, if the movie didn't have that in it, it would be like more interesting, because it's like you would not know. It's like you said, it starts off like a typical action movie. Like, oh yeah, Arnold's gonna win at the end, and all these guys are probably gonna survive, and they're gonna kill some bad guys, and then it slowly transitions into like this crazy movie where like they're being hunted by this alien creature, and it's like there's like elements of horror in it, gore, everything that I like, man. Like all this stuff, and this is why Predator is like one of my favorite movies, because all this stuff, man, I grew up on this shit, man. I just love it, man. And it's not easy to do, by the way, to merge all those genres together like that, man. So John McTiernan, man, like, this guy needs to come back, man. I don't know where he is.
He's working. Well, I mean, I looked up his IMDb. He is in pre-production on a new film. He hasn't made anything since Basic with John Travolta.
Yeah, man. He got in trouble, though, I heard.
Yeah, there's some. He lied on a wiretap, and he lied to an FBI. There was some wiretap thing, and he lied to an FBI investigator. He went to jail for less than a year, but he ended up having to file bankruptcy, and he just hasn't been really been working ever since.
Yeah, man. At this point, I would take another Die Hard, man. From him, just from him. He's the only one that I would take a Die Hard from.
But Bruce couldn't. Yeah, Bruce Willis is retired now.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean, yeah, man. This movie will go down as probably like. You know what's interesting too? I think this is Arnold's best acting performance. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Arnold in T2 is peak Arnie. Like, that was his best movie. But his best performance is probably the one. Would you agree?
Yeah, he's really. Yeah, Arnold. He also doesn't have to carry the whole movie because he has a really good supporting cast.
Yeah, man, that's true. That's true.
But we don't look at. It's not like some of his other movies. Like, man, Arnold's really struggling here.
No, it's like,
and he doesn't even have to talk. He's also by himself for the last 30 minutes. So it's just you see him just building stuff and doing physical stuff. Building traps, building weapons, and he's acting with his eyes because that's all you can see.
That's the thing about it, man. Arnold is actually like really effective if you know how to use him right. And I would even argue saying that, like, even the scenes where he's not speaking, he's actually putting on a good performance. He actually is, because that part when. Do you remember the part when he's fighting the Predator at the end, and he crawls into some little cave, and the Predator's like right behind him. You see like the Predator's leg come down, and the expression he has on his face. he's like looking around like, oh shit. There's a lot of great moments in this movie when he's doing that, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty good, man. Like, I believe that this guy was, you know, actually afraid, man, and actually figuring this thing out as he went. But yeah, man, I just wanted to reminisce because I feel like this is a movie that, you know, is kind of like not only amongst me, but like most talkback guys are, you know, big fans of this movie, and I think it's, you know, for good reason. And it's sort of for me like one of those movies where like I gotta screen people that I let into my life. I'm like, have you seen Predator? Yes? Okay, we're friends now. It's that type of thing where it's like, yeah, I can understand you if you understand that movie. But yeah, man, it's getting a bit late here, so well, I guess we kind of wind it up.
Have you? Do you know what was the story with Jean-Claude Van Damme playing Predator? Because I've seen a set photo of him in the costume, but I know it didn't work out.
Yeah, so he was originally supposed to be the Predator actor in the suit, and apparently he did not expect the movie to be what it was, and he didn't realize that he would be out in the real jungle, especially like, you know, wearing that crazy suit. And apparently like he was complaining so much about the heat, and it was a very like it was a rough shoot because those guys were really in the jungle, man. And I basically, from what I understand, he complained a lot and he didn't like what was happening, and he expected it to be like a more prominent role, I believe. So he just kind of he quit the project, from what I understand.
I mean, honestly, that makes sense. I mean, he would have been. He's the problem. The Predator is barely in the movie. A lot of what you see is just a visual. Even when he's in the cloak, you see a lot of visual. That's a visual effect, and maybe there was a guy in a bodysuit,
right,
to scope that on there. But for to be in that amount of makeup and costume in the actual jungle, I mean, that would have been. They probably weren't paying him. They probably weren't paying him enough to do that. And I mean, he could have gotten heat stroke out there. But so that's probably true of everybody else.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. It's not an easy job, man, doing that shit. So shout out again to Kevin Peter Hall, because I hear that he was loving that shit. Like, he didn't complain or anything. But based on like interviews I see him with Stan Winston talking about him and stuff like that, like he was just gung ho for it. And yeah, man, I'm glad they gave him a cameo at the end. Even if it's like,
was he in the helicopter?
Yeah, he was the pilot of the helicopter at the end.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Yeah, he also did. Yeah, he was in the second film, and he was also in Harry and the. He was in Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh yeah, he's done a lot of different TV shows and movies. Like, a guy like that, man, is just like, I respect people like that because they never get to really emote or show their face, but at the same time they put on a performance, which I think is it's not easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this guy could have been a '90s action star, if he had lived longer. It's too bad what happened.
Yeah, man, but
you could have seen him in all those '90s. You could picture him being in those '90s Steven Seagal or Bruce Willis movies.
This is off topic, but have you seen Marked for Death?
Probably. Who else is in that?
It's a Steven Seagal movie when he's fighting the Jamaican gang.
Sounds familiar.
Maybe.
I've seen. I'll tell you. I've seen the one. I've definitely seen was the Glimmer Man that had Keenan Ivory Wayans in it.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it was all right. That one has a really good kill at the end. He kicks a guy onto a spiked fence or something.
But yeah, man, the '80s was a special time, and listen, you know what's crazy? I didn't notice this before, but like, I have a bunch of movie posters up in my like living room, and I wasn't even like thinking about this, but like, I was looking at them, and I'm like, wait a sec, all the movies I have up on my wall are like all from the same 5 or 6 years in between the '80s.
Yeah, they're all like 35, 40 years old now.
What the? So I got Aliens. That was like '87, right?
Aliens?
Aliens.
Predator 1 is 87. Aliens is either 85 or 86.
Was it? Anyway, it's around the same 2-3 year mark, like I was saying. But damn.
Yeah, Aliens 1986, and the original was 79. So yeah, 1987 I think was RoboCop and Predator.
Oh
yeah, that was
God.
The three big sci-fi films, of this ilk were RoboCop, Predator, and The Terminator. Yeah, at least for series that started in the 80s. And then next, military. Then you got Rambo, and Top Gun, 1985. Much different. That's more of an MTV action movie.
It's funny.
At the time, that was one of the biggest. I mean, that was outside of Star Wars. That was one of the biggest summer blockbusters. That and Indiana Jones.
I haven't even seen Top Gun 1. It's not one of the movies that I've watched.
Yeah.
But I like the sequel.
I think it's on. Yeah, you can probably catch it. It's probably on streaming somewhere. I watched the old one on Amazon like a month ago.
Nice. Well, Rusty, it's been a good talk, but I'm probably gonna go ahead and I'm thinking about doing another video soon. It'll probably be like something. I'm thinking about doing either Total Recall or RoboCop.
You should do RoboCop.
Should probably get RoboCop out of the way. That's a big one.
Yeah. Did you ever read? And I haven't read this for myself, but I picked up a copy of Starship Troopers last weekend. The actual book. I'm either keeping it for myself or giving it to my brother for his birthday. But I'll just take it back and read it for myself.
Yeah,
but
the
film was very different from what the book was.
I heard that before, man. I heard the actual the book or whatever it's based on. They were using a lot more technology, and it was a lot more like mech based and crazy battles and stuff like that. But Starship Troopers, that was a very good film.
Yeah, so it's fun. That's a really. I saw that in the cinema when I was, 8 or 9 years. I was probably 8 or 9 years old with my dad. I don't know. He of course he wanted to see it, but I probably shouldn't have. But I was happy for it anyway.
To me, I feel like that is what an alien. Like, sorry, not aliens, but a Halo movie should be. Except you just swap out the bugs for the Covenant. But
yeah, I haven't bothered watching that TV show. So I heard too many bad things about it.
Yeah, I avoided that like a plague.
Intuitively, it seems like his helmet should stay on for most of the series. They keep doing that thing like they do in Mandalorian, where Pedro Pascal doesn't want to wear the mask. So it's like, okay, let's write a storyline where he has to go in undercover.
These guys.
Carl Urban's Dredd got it right. The helmet stayed on.
It's gotta stay on, man. See, part of the skill set of that is going back to Kevin Peter Hall. Like, you have a character where he doesn't show his face. You can use other emotions to portray a performance. It actually makes it interesting, man. Because in Dredd, for example, the way that he acted through that helmet was actually really good. And you got a sense of that. It takes skill to do that, man. But yeah, man, I think we're gonna probably wrap it up here. But man, I wish it wasn't a weeknight, otherwise I'd go a little bit longer. But that's how it goes. I guess maybe Saturday I'll see if I can set something up if any of you guys are available, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it was a good talk. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll be back with another episode of our film classics here. This was Predator.